Hello everyone, today I would like to talk about football, also known as soccer, and how it developed into the most popular sport around the world. This is a very close topic to me because, I'm a freaking toe. But no time to waste, let's talk about it. Firstly, the word soccer is only used in US and Canada. Do not mistake the game with American football, but in this video I will be calling it football. Apparently, we have been goofing around with the ball-shaped object for a while now, and with that I mean for about like 3000 years. The first with the ball game appeared to be Aztecs. The game was rather simple. They used a piece of rubber and then there were some other rules to it. But the important part is that they played the game in some sort of a ritual occasion. There were two teams and the ball represented the sun, which is great and all, but the funny little detail is that the losing team's captain or the whole team was sacrificed to the gods. And really, that makes no sense to me because if I would receive a sacrifice, I would want the best players, not the worst, but whatever floats their boat. Oh, and these guys actually are the only ones in deep history who actually used a rubber ball because they had the access to the material. You can go find out about that in the chewing gum episode of the Toe Show. The next record of people actually kicking something around is found in China, 3rd century BC. They were playing a game called Chuju. They stitched up a piece of leather and filled it with fur or feathers and even used a square field, so rather similar to what we have today. And this game spread to Japan, and they gave it their own name, Kemari, which was mostly played during certain ceremonies, but it was not a competitive game. Oh, and there are no more records in history where anyone was sacrificed after the game, at least not officially. There are also some mentions of a game that was played by Australia's Aborigines called Marngook or something. Might be older than China's Chuju, but who knows? In this game, winner was determined by the other team just by saying that they were better. Talk about lack of rules, right? An important detail to mention is that most of these ancient games didn't really have to score goals, they just tried to keep the ball in the air for as long as possible. But I can't really vouch for this because there are no video evidences to verify this before 1897. Moving on. Ancient Greeks. They also had a ball game that involved kicking and some other rules. However, they were not popular and thus were not included in Pan-Hellenic games, which basically means it was not an Olympic sport. Next up, the Romans. They also had something, but they also did not consider this game of match value. It was not played in arenas or amphitheaters. However, it was more of a military thing called harpastum, like an exercise in barracks, as well as pastime when you're on the road conquering the continent. It is believed that the ball game idea was brought to England by Romans, but to be honest, by this time everyone around the world probably decided to kick something around on their own. So this fact is kind of a long shot. But the modern game, at least when it comes to teams trying to score goals, has its roots in England. It was played in the meadows and on the roads, or just in towns where there was plenty of space. These games involved not just kicking, but also punching of the ball. Oh, and a lot more people were on the field. Basically, as many as wanted. The games were actually quite brutal and, from modern perspective, quite similar to rugby. There were lack of rules and many people involved. The players caused a lot of damage to the surrounding area, and also in some cases, players just straight up died. But still, this was not considered as a sacrifice. Guess what? Due to the brutal rules and lack of them, in the 16th century the game was widely forbidden for a while, but it returned to the public in the first half of 19th century, mostly played in schools. Yeah, why not put the violent, destructive activity back into the hands of young people? But there were so many variations of the game, the number of players, length of the game, size of the ball, and still no certain rules. Then two schools rose among others in their versions of the game. School of Rugby, yes, that is an actual place and an actual school, and you might guess which of the modern games originated there. And the other one was School of Eton, where players played exclusively with their feet, therefore making this the place where football was kinda born. Therefore, in 1863 in London, the first football association was formed to get some guidelines going. And one of the first things they did was justify the name of the association by determining that carrying the ball with hands was not allowed. And yeah, they also decided on ball size and weight. And that's how rugby and football finally got separated. At this point, many of modern rules were still not implemented. The number of players varied, there were no uniforms, so the teams could not be distinguished. That might be fun for a spectator. And the players also might wear caps, which apparently had become a problem at some point since they don't anymore. Actually, the game still took some time to take its shape. For example, at the beginning, there were no referees. That job was for the team captains. Referees got introduced officially only in 1871 in the first Football Association Cup. There were also no goalkeepers. An actual position was made official in 1912. Before that, don't let the ball cross the line by any means necessary. In a gentlemanlike manner, of course. Penalties and free kick, 1891, but the pitches were not yet marked at this point. Offside was also introduced at the beginning of 1900s due to lack of goals being made. Oh, and penalty shootouts were only introduced in 1970s, so the game would not go on forever. Yeah, the game might still evolve some more. Who knows? Well, back to the actual history. At first, this sport was the entertainment for the British working class, which it still is, of course, and it gained huge popularity fast because at the end of 19th century, the big matches would draw up to 30,000 spectators. And of course, due to the good old colonization, the sport was brought around the world by the British. It gained rapid popularity in South America and India. Then, of course, football clubs started forming. Firstly, they were unrecognized and small, but yet again, thanks to industrialization, as cities grew larger due to more people gathering for work in factories, it made the path for larger, more serious football clubs. Before this, football teams mainly consisted of students, but now factory worker teams also emerged. And thanks to the developing railroad system, these teams could go to each other to compete. And soon after, in 1885, professional football was legalized because spectators were willing to pay for tickets and some clubs were willing to pay their best players. And now, in 21st century, football has some of the highest paid athletes across all the sports, with them making hundreds of millions. I bet their toes are being treated real well, and they don't have to resort to showbiz like me. For example, Lionel Messi, his left foot is insured for $750 million. That's like 11 tons of gold. Well, back to work. Then, of course, football bodies emerged with English Football League in 1888 and in 1904, Fédération Internationale de Football Association was formed by most European countries. However, the British countries did not join at first, since they invented the game, why would they go under some other organization? But they joined 1 year later. However, they didn't take part in the World Cup till 1950s for various reasons, of course, like politics and that they wouldn't want to lose a game since they were considering themselves a superpower and etc. And basically, that's what's up with football being the modern day Goliath of the sport industry, with more than 200 countries competing for a chance to play in the World Cup, where the final attracts almost a billion live viewers around the world. Thanks for tuning in to yet another episode of The Toe Show. Press like or subscribe if you like this one and might want to see another one. For now, toes out.